Billie Jean King once said, "It is really important that we start celebrating our differences. Let's start tolerating them, but then we need to celebrate them." Today I will be explaining the history, present, and future of economic disparities and inequalities in the sport of tennis through the eyes of gender and disability. Look around the room. We're all different. No two humans have the same strands of DNA. Some of us are male, some of us are female. Some of us have physical differences, some of us mental. But it's not what makes us different that defines us, it is how we use it to our advantage. While tennis has always included men and women, historically men have received much more attention. Some say that men's tennis is more exhilarating, some say it's even a different game. Some have voiced their opinions on this issue, such as Indian Wells CEO Raymond Moore, stating, "If I was a lady player, I would go down on my knees every night and thank God that Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal were born because they have really carried the sport. They really have." These false and derogatory statements are just one example of gender discrimination in the sport. As a trailblazer for women's tennis is Billie Jean King. She formed the Women's Tennis Association, won a whopping total of 39 Grand Slams, and even won Sports Illustrated Sportswoman of the Year. She was challenged by former world number one 55-year-old Bobby Riggs as a publicity and gambling stunt dubbed the Battle of the Sexes. She won in straight sets, creating a turning point for the sport of women's tennis. Another pressing issue within gender inequality is viewership in its relation to wage and TV time. According to BBC, it was not until 2007 that all of the Grand Slam tournaments began offering equal prize money. Also, according to BBC, former world number one currently, 28-year-old Novak Djokovic was cited saying, "Women fought for what they deserve and they got it, but claimed that prize money should be fairly distributed based on who attracts more attention, spectators, and who sells more tickets." For somebody who makes $20 million annually in endorsements alone, he is not very empathetic. The salary of a professional player consists of results and endorsements, but on the terms of prize money, women are paid significantly less. I'm sure you all know how tough it is to make a living in today's world. We all have our own hardships. Some people are affected by things out of their control, such as disability, catastrophe, and even tragedy. We are all affected by these things, some more than others. Now I will delve into the inequalities and disparities concerning disabled athletes. Wheelchair tennis is a relatively new sport. I had the opportunity to see several players, such as David Wagner, at the NEC Wheelchair Masters Tournament in Orlando, Florida. And I was fascinated by how the sport worked, as I had never witnessed it before. There are two divisions in wheelchair tennis. The open division, which consists of players with upper body, normal, and lower body impairment, and then the quad division, for those with lower and upper body impairments. While these players are different, they train, work, and compete just as hard as the able-bodied players. 2020 has brought a really unexpected year. Nothing has been guaranteed. The tennis world shut down its tour for over 4 months, canceling a majority of the tournaments during the season. But towards the end of the year, they have still held some major tournaments, one of those being the US Open, which is considered one of the largest sporting events in the world. A detrimental decision of the tournament this year was to completely cancel the wheelchair tournament without even consulting the players, which produced some pretty angry responses. According to Australian champion Dylan Alcott, who tweeted, "Just announced that US Open will go ahead without wheelchair tennis. Players weren't consulted. I thought I had enough to qualify, being a two-time champion and number one in the world. Turns out I missed the only thing that matters, being able to walk." Disgusting discrimination. While the decision of the tournament was reversed, wheelchair tennis has often been neglected in many situations. In terms of prize money, wheelchair events offer peanuts compared to normal tennis events, which can leave players in hardships of trying to compete, travel, and even survive. One last example I'd like to bring up is of Kotatso Montjan, who is a South African wheelchair tennis player. She had her left leg amputated when she was a child due to a congenital disorder growing up in a rural South African village. When her coach introduced her to wheelchair tennis, she immediately had a knack for it. She competed in the Paralympics in Beijing, London, and Rio de Janeiro, but in 2016, her sponsor, Tennis South Africa, simply ran out of sponsorship money. After not being able to travel with her coach to many tournaments during the course of 2 years, she eventually won a few local tournaments, which ended up in her receiving a wild card into the Wimbledon Championships of 2018. In doing so, she became the first black South African woman to compete in this prestigious tournament, and she even won the first round, which led to her getting sponsorships from over 10 different companies, which one of those being Nike. While her story is remarkable, many are in the same shoes as Montjean, but are much less fortunate. Some people find hardships at every corner, and some do not know what to do. The sport of tennis is a very adaptive one in itself, being played on every continent by people of all races, genders, and abilities, which is really magnificent, but there are many defects in the sport. The presence of economic disparities in wages and inequalities cannot be simply glanced over. While there are so many stories of professional players overcoming hardship, we all must view success on an equal scale. Whether it be the next professional player from a South African rural village or the next quadriplegic Grand Slam champion, we must view success equally, no matter who it is and no matter their capabilities. In the words of King, we must celebrate our differences, as they can define who we are and what we can be. Thank you.